Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you're new here. Today is the solstice. Woo! So if you're in the northern hemisphere, we have the start of summer, and if you are in the southern hemisphere, we have the start of winter. So the solstice, depending on where you're at, you're either in the longest day of the year or the shortest day of the year. And so the solstice really helps us turn inward and think about like balance, helps us think about how, when we find balance between things, usually we have to sort through that after we kind of move one way or the other in extremes. So the solstice energy is just about getting clear about like what's working for me, what's not working for me, where do I need to balance something out, where do I need to have more energy somewhere with all of this. So just thinking about that and thinking about cycles and seasons changing and how we show up for ourselves through all of that. Okay, so for your tarot today, I have 4 cards, 4 groups for you. You can pick based on the card you can see, the number, the picture, anything that resonates. When you're ready, all the timestamps are below, and I will see you at the reading that you chose. Hi everyone, welcome. This is for everyone who picked group number 1. So you'll pick the card Meditate and Contemplate, New Moon in Pisces. So I feel like group 1, there's part of you that was drawn to this because there's something in your life that's asking you to turn inward and go inward and kind of search for the answer there. There is a healthy balance with things where it is important for us to kind of hear other people's stories or look for advice outside of us, or just kind of hear different options or perspectives. That's definitely a time and place for all of that. But this card specifically, I think you're being guided to turn inward and just, see what comes up for you, right? You've gathered all this information outside of myself. And so what actually resonates and feels right for me? And when we turn inward, when we get guidance about our own emotional state, when we can just observe what's going on within ourselves, that's when we can contemplate, because we're like, okay, I noticed this, and this. So what am I going to do with that? Or this, and this is coming up. Where do I look? Right. So meditate and contemplate is a reminder that eventually, we need to seek counsel and guidance within ourselves, and we need to get clear about, okay, what am I being guided to do? What is the direct messaging? What's my intuition saying? If I'm praying and journaling, reflecting, meditating, contemplating, right? Doing all of those, what's the messaging I'm getting for myself about this specific situation? So group 1, it might be time to turn a little inward and see what comes out with that. Again, you can take it how it resonates, which for whatever tool to use, right? Sometimes it can be helpful to just sit there and meditate and see what comes up. Sometimes you can do a visualization meditation. Sometimes you can write in your journal. You can go for a walk and just see if any ideas come to you. But yeah, so really turning inward and checking, what comes up. And if you don't have anything specific that you're like, oh yeah, that's the thing I need to, check in about, then just spend some time with yourself. Maybe your heart has a message for you that you haven't really been tuned into because you've been focused on these things outside of you, which no judgment, that happens to all of us, right? We get caught up in physical reality. But yeah, if you want to turn inward, this is definitely suggested for you, group 1. Okay, I'm going to pull just a little bit of tarot for you, and then I'll do some oracle cards. It's time to birth something new, group 1, okay? So you have the 10 of Swords, 10 of Wands, and the Empress. So I think you are carrying too much. This is emotional burden. This is overwhelmed with that. This is physical burden. But look what's the other side, Empress, okay? So I feel like these two things, you are carrying too much stuff. You're trying to either do too much, or you haven't let go of something emotionally, or you're really focused on something that you don't need to be putting your attention on anymore, right? Sometimes something just sticks around because we're still hyper focused on it, right? And I don't mean like spiritually bypass or pretend like you're not feeling something, right? But this is about getting clear on, what am I holding on to that it's actually more beneficial for me to let go of it, right? If something served its purpose, it's okay for you to let it go. And then that can lead to exhaustion. This is obviously peak exhaustion here on the ground, swords in the back. And then also just look at this from carrying too many things. So if you can kind of shed things, release things, let things go, because look at this. This is Empress, regardless of your gender. The Empress is about birthing energy, mother energy, like creating something. It doesn't have to be a child. It can be, if it is, God bless, right? But this can also be, a new creative project or a new direction in your life or a new self, right? Sometimes we're scared to let go of our past selves because we're unsure of, who am I going to grow into? What's going to happen? who am I going to become, right? So having faith in that process and trusting it is what I'm hearing, right? You have to let go of these things so there can be space for this new version of you to be born, or if you have a new idea or creative project or the next step in your life, the next chapter, all of that. But yeah, really, so I think that meditate and contemplate can come in there and just be like, just ask yourself, like, what do I need to let go of? Where do I need to give myself permission to grow and expand? And how can I do that? So that, again, you can have space for these new things to come through. Okay. So I think part of you knows, so we have the world, Four of Pentacles in the Tower. So I think part of you knows, the world is like a cycle coming to a close. It's time for you to let something go. But again, more fear here, right? Blocking the heart. I don't feel comfortable. I don't want to let this go. I don't want it to leave me. Because again, what happens? A tower, right? And the tower isn't always necessarily bad, can feel bad, right? But there has to be things have to clear out and leave before we can get to the other side. So a group one, I don't know what you need to let go of or what you need to be done with or call your energy back from or anything like that. But we got some good messaging here around that, right? Just let the cycle be closed. Trust that you don't have to like overly protect your heart anymore. And that, even if the things do come crashing down, it's so something else can be built in its place, right? Sometimes we get so like, oh no, this is leaving. What am I going to do? We can forget that we have to let something go for something else new to be able to come into our lives. So again, having faith that, whatever gets taken away is just reminding us that we are not in as much control as we think we are. And also kind of surrendering to that process of like, okay, everything's a cycle, everything comes and goes, with all of that. And look at this, okay? And so once you do that, okay, so we have the Seven of Cups, Four of Wands, and Three of Cups. So once you do that, there's going to be more options, okay? Sometimes we can get really stressed out too, because we're like, oh my God, this one thing I really wanted, or that was part of my life for a long time, or this old me I used to be is gone, and we can really focus on the loss, which is very real. We're not minimizing that, okay? Have your process, have your feelings, but look at this. So much opens up from that, right? There's so many more options. There's space for something new. And look what we get from that, okay? So this is like, going to the next layer, going to the next level, going to the next growth of expansion of yourself, and doing it with like people who love you and care about you. So maybe this new person you're growing into is going to bring you some new friendships and new care in your life, or you're going to build a new layer with the friends you already have, or you're going to find your community a little bit more. The more of ourselves we become, the more we can find people who are a match to that, and we connect with that, and we can show up and really honor those parts of ourselves, and those parts of us can be seen, and then we can choose to be in community with those people even more. So again, when you give yourself permission to choose something different instead of like clinging to something that it's time to let go of, then you can have so much more for yourself than what you ever could have imagined. We just get, we can't see, we get blinded by the loss sometimes, instead of just turning inward and being like, okay, what can I grow from this? Not just, oh my God, only this loss. There is growth that does happen with these things too. Okay, I'm going to pull some oracle cards for you guys in group one. The Sage. Okay, so this is the energy again of just like, you can make choices around who you are, and you can trust who you're growing into be, right? Sage is like a wise person. They're clear. They have this knowledge, this understanding, right? And so I think with this, what I really feel like is you can trust who your soul wants you to grow into, because there's like this innate knowing that's beyond our human comprehension, but that is part of us. And trusting like who or what we want to grow into can be very affirming. So again, the Sage is just a reminder, like, trust what your soul is doing, even if your logical mind doesn't make sense, even if, you really want to cling to maybe these smaller ways of being that might not resonate anymore. And just trusting, the wisdom that you have for your relationship with yourself, and how you show up and what that looks like. And again, giving yourself permission to grow and expand and change, even if it seems like, who am I if I do that? Then we have the Angel of Eternal Love. Beautiful. As I let love in, it stays in my soul forever. So this is, if we think about transformation and all of that, I really think this is about remembering like all the yous that you used to be, you'll always carry in your heart. So again, if you're scared of letting something go or releasing it, right, in physical reality, it might look different. But if you turn inward, you always have that space in your heart, and you can always connect to that energy that younger version of yourself, that person, that job, that identity you held, right? You know, as I let love in, it stays in my soul forever. Just remembering there are things that can't be taken away from us, even if they shift and change in physical reality. And then if we go back to even the meditate and contemplate card, that was the group 1 for you guys, the card you picked from the pick a card, the pile. Okay, this is just a reminder that when you meditate and contemplate and you ask God, you ask your higher power, you ask love, whatever you call universal force, right? When you let it in, that can help, you know, when you're trying to look from a place of growth and expansion versus like desperation and like, oh my God, show me what to do because I'm scared of losing this, this, and this thing, right? But again, just opening your heart and letting that be the guidance for like your meditation and contemplation, and what you choose next can be it is way more rewarding and fulfilling than choosing from, you know, a place of lack and fear. Okay, I'm going to close with one affirmation card for you, group 1. I choose to live with ease. Okay, so this is, I think, too, again, when we think about things leaving or changing, right? Sometimes our resistance to it makes it so much more difficult than if we just surrender to things leaving. Again, not totally ideal, the best place a lot of us want to stay, but you know, sometimes we make things more difficult because of our resistance to the situation. So praying for surrender, praying to be able to be changed, praying for willingness to change, you know, all of that. So just kind of letting that go. And I choose to live with ease, surrendering to the process. Like, again, not to the place where you're like on one and don't care about anything. Okay, that's not what we're talking about, obviously, but there is a way that we add layers of stress to our lives when we don't need to be. I choose to live with ease. Okay, that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's for everyone who picked group number 2. So you all pick the card, Show the World the Real You, Full Moon in Aquarius. So sometimes if we get this message, we can be like, what do you mean? I just have to show everyone who I am all the time, right? So obviously use discernment when you do this. But I think, you know, this is a push for all of you who pick group number 2 to say, okay, where are my safe relationships? Where's these things that feel safe to me and I feel like I can lean into them? Where are those that you can kind of experiment and push yourself with showing more of your authentic self, right? Okay, my job, maybe I can like show a little bit more of my personality in myself, right? It doesn't mean, again, you have no boundaries, you just let anything go, all of that. Okay, you can use discernment of how, what, and when you show this, but you know, sometimes we can wall off and get really, really closed off because we're scared to be vulnerable in any way, shape, or form. Because vulnerability is still vulnerable, right? It still doesn't feel completely easy, even if it is someone who is safe, or, you know, like it still takes courage on our part to show the world who we really are. So just feeling like, oh, well, this doesn't feel, sometimes we think like, oh, this doesn't feel safe, but maybe we're just uncomfortable. And again, only you know when you're unsafe versus uncomfortable, but it really is about turning inward and checking and saying like, okay, am I unsafe, or am I just uncomfortable because I have to, you know, show some vulnerability here? So show the world the real you. I feel like if you've been waiting to go deeper in a relationship with someone, or it could be romantic or platonic, or at your job, or like a creative endeavor you have, or just like you know, this private habit or hobby you have, and sharing that with someone in your life, like just opening that space up for connection. But again, showing the world the real you. This can really, it can seem really scary and intimidating, but the payoff is worth it for what you do. Okay, I'm going to pull some tarot cards for you, and then we'll do a few oracle cards at the end. God. Okay, the Chariot, Queen of Swords, and the Hierophant. So yeah, it's time to get moving on this, okay? It's time to get moving. It's time to show the world the real you. It's time to put yourself out there in a way that feels scary or vulnerable. Again, it could be scary and vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you are not safe, right? It just means that you have to trust that I can put myself out there a little bit, and I'll be okay. You know, I can figure it out from there. And this is saying, the Queen of Swords to me is saying, you learned your lessons, you know what your boundaries are, you know what works and doesn't work for you. And you can be clear, again, what I was talking about in the beginning of your discernment around who, what, where, when, how much I share with people, right? You can use your own boundaries around that to decide, this is what's going to work for me. This is not what's going to work for me. This is who I'm going to engage with. This is not who I'm going to engage with, right? So really holding space for that and trusting yourself, right? Like, just because something feels new to us or it's not the most comfortable doesn't mean we're making the wrong choice. It just means that, you know, it maybe isn't the most comfortable thing for us right now. Then we have the Hierophant. So the Hierophant is about like traditional things. I always think of the Hierophant as like back to basics. And so trusting that, like, okay, if I put myself out there, I have my self-soothing things that work for me. I know I have my healthy coping skills. I know what my boundaries are. I know this is my limit. I know, you know, so I think really using your healthy tools to guide the choices you're making and what you're doing and where you're going, you know, can definitely all come into play here. So just remember, when we move forward, like, I can trust my boundaries, I can trust my toolkit, I trust what feels right to me. You know, you can go at the pace that works for you and trust in your skill set to help you carry through whatever you're working through to get to the other side, right? So again, you don't just have to be like, oh, I'm doing this thing and I have no say or agency in it, right? You have a choice in that. And you can trust yourself through the process, trust your skills, trust what feels right to you, trust your boundaries, trust, you know, all these things you've developed along the way as you're moving forward on this process of showing the real you and becoming more of yourself and who you want to grow and change into. Okay, we have Justice, Judgment, and Four of Cups. So again, more of this energy of like trusting yourself to have your boundaries, to keep balance for yourself, to have these things be played out in like an equal way for yourself, and trusting that, you know, again, like, the more we open up and share and expand with the world, the more like we can find things that resonate and work better for us. And with this Judgment here, I feel like, again, that's going to be around, you know, finding people that are a match for us, finding work that is a match for us, finding these relationships, or, you know, the next creative project you want to do, or whatever it looks like, right? But when you are able to be your full self and your authentic self and give yourself permission from that, then that's when you can use your discernment and judgment a little bit more to decide what's for you. And you know, being brave enough to accept that, right? There's a gift. You're being pushed to show more of yourself because there's a gift that's trying to be given to you of what you can grow and expand and change into, right? I'm thinking of the quote, what wonderful thing didn't start out scary, you know, or like intimidating, or, oh, I don't know what's going to happen here, right? So when we're brave enough to take that step, to take that leap, to show more of our real selves, again, in whatever way it's resonating for you, there's so many gifts waiting for us once we start that momentum and start going and start finding our way along it, right? Even if you think of like in stories, when someone goes on a journey, right? The fact that they start the journey, they meet these people along the way, they get these gifts, they get this help, they get this support, right? None of that would have happened if they never went on the journey, if they never pushed themselves to get out of their comfort zone, if they never showed more of who they really were along the way. So just trusting and having faith that, you know, there are gifts that are waiting for you, and there are things and additions and changes and wonderful new things in your life to reach out to and hold on to, if you are brave enough to take that step and move forward and do all of that. Okay, then we have the Lovers, Strength, and Nine of Wands. So the Lovers, for individual reading, it could mean finding a romantic partner, but I always read this as like finding balance within ourselves of, you know, we all have masculine and feminine energy, regardless of our genders, right? So we all need to find that balance between masculine energy, which is like taking action, moving forward, doing things, and then feminine energy, which is more about receiving, turning inward for guidance, right? Like just being able to be still. So I think as you go along, something you're going to find is the strength you get from rebalancing that. That's definitely something that a lot of us need to learn how to do. We get pushed into, especially we get pushed into being one extreme or the other in an unhealthy way, especially as it relates to the way we present our gender identity. And so finding a healing relationship with our own masculine and feminine energies inside of us and in a way that works for us is like what's going to bring our own strength. And that's how we're going to find what our strength is, how we find what works for us, how we find a lot of these things instead of, like, oh, I'm just at the whim of all these things that happen to me. And I think once you do that, this is, you're going to be, your confidence is going to build. You're not going to be so unsure. You're going to be able to, again, build your confidence, feel more clear about this is who I am. This is what works for me. This isn't what works for me. This is how I want to show up. This is what I want to do. This is, all of that. So just having faith that showing the world, the real you starts with having that inner harmony and that inner clarity within yourself, and then spreading that outwards to things and people outside of you. Okay, let's look at some oracle cards. Get curious. So, okay, this is, I think, again, show the world the real you, more of the real you. We're talking about if you're like, I don't know, I feel like I already show myself. Just, who do I want to be? This doesn't have to, you don't have to be you don't have to have a huge, giant identity change and like become someone totally different overnight, right? It could just be, I want to be more artistic in my life, or I want to be more patient, or I want to be more giving, or I want to be more, whatever. Just contemplate, like, if I was a more clear, healthy version of myself, what would that look like? And get curious about it. Turn inward and say, okay, what does that look like? What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? Sometimes we don't even realize the things we want to change or that aren't working for us anymore because we just do something that we've done for so long that we don't even realize that we could change it. So just starting to be reflective, ask the questions, be non-judgmental of the answers that come up, and just remember that, again, you have a choice if you do change or not. But that does start with self-examination and self-reflection within ourselves. The guardian angel of young love. I accept love with gratitude. I am opened and made whole by its beauty. That's so sweet. So I feel like this is with young love, to me, that speaks of like innocence and like hopefulness and just the promise of what can be given to us if we open our hearts and we're willing to be there. So I feel like for some of you, this might not apply to everyone, but who pick group 2, maybe this is giving romantic love a chance again. Maybe if you've been burned bad or really betrayed, or you got your heart broken, just having faith that, the love that is for you will be so worth it. And so if that's not for you, don't take the message, but just came through. So just wanted to share it. But for everyone else, I think, this is also a reminder that you can have, the youthful heart and spirit, right? It doesn't have to age. Everything will fade except the heart, and you can allow your heart to, be opened and made whole by connecting to that energy again, even if you feel like you lost it a really long time ago. Okay, we'll close with one affirmation card for you. Group 3. Group 3, group 2. You guys are group 2, I know that. I'm worthy of my own love. Very beautiful. So just exactly what we're talking about, just trusting we shut our hearts down because we think we're protecting ourselves from other people, but what we're actually doing is, blocking our own love from ourselves. So I'm worthy of my own love. So this could just be starting to rebuild that relationship with yourself, offering yourself love and care, and holding space for that within yourself. Okay, that's everything I have for you today. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me. If you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is for everyone who picked group number 3. So I'll pick the card, Bring Love into the Situation, New Moon in Aquarius. Now, sometimes people hear this and they think it means like, if I'm loving, then I'm a doormat, or I have to accept bad treatment, or, I just can let anything fly. That's actually the opposite of love. That's passivity. That's not having boundaries, right? That's love for someone else, possibly at the expense of ourselves, right? So love is actually rooted in deep respect for the self. Love is rooted in knowing your worth and your value and having boundaries. Love is removing the ego self and the parts that want to be right and, get a boost from the situation, instead saying, okay, how do I see this take a step back. How do I see this from a bigger picture, from a loving perspective, in a way that is respectful of myself and the other person or people involved, or even if no one else is involved, right? Love can also be deep faith. It can be having faith that you're being taken care of, even if you can't see it right now, or you feel like you've been trying and nothing is like coming to fruition, right? So bring love into the situation. This can, like always with all my readings, just take it how it resonates for you. But this can be a reminder of just like, maybe I need some self-compassion. Maybe I need some self-respect. Maybe I need some self-discipline. Maybe I need better boundaries. Maybe I need, I don't know, right? Love can be so many different things in so many different situations, in so many different times of our lives. So this is worth, I think, turning inward and saying, you know, how can I bring love into the situation? What does that look like for right here and right now, right? Discernment is also part of love, right? In this situation, it's loving for me to say yes. In this situation, it's loving for me to say no. So just kind of, you know, if we get caught up in like, I don't know what to do, I don't know how to whatever, right? Sometimes our learned reactions or the gut things we want to do might not necessarily be the best thing. We just think they are because it's what we've done for so long. But this is just about remembering, you know, we do have a choice and we can choose what we do in each specific situation that can be loving. And it might not look loving compared to someone else's viewpoint, or it might not look loving compared to a habit we used to do a bunch, right? But that's the thing about love. It's so nuanced and there's so many different options for how it shows up, for what it looks like. So bring love into the situation is opening yourself up to that space to be able to you know, let something possibly happen that hasn't really been happening before. Okay, I'm going to pull some tarot cards for you guys. Group 3. Okay, we have the Knight of Cups, Two of Cups, and the Queen of Wands. So yeah, so I think this is a slow and steady Knight of Cups. You know, the horse is walking very peacefully. His knight is holding the cup. They're moving. Okay, so this is like, I think, just opening yourself up to the possibility of what something loving could look like here, right? Like, what does that look like for myself? What could that be? What could I do on the way to meet the situation where it's at? Two of Cups is always about meeting where someone or something is, not from the place where I want it to be because of my ego and my need to be right and all of this. So just opening your heart and just being like, okay, what is the loving way I could approach this, or that I possibly want to look at this, or that I, you know, whatever. What does that look like for me? And this Two of Cups of like being open to, okay, that means, you know, I need to not engage in this certain way, or I need to change my tone of voice, or I need to have faith that this is going to work out and I don't need to be wrestling with it and manipulating it and controlling it, right? And that's going to lead you to this Queen of Wands energy of like emotional mastery and just like, you know, sitting in this knowing and clarity of what to do from that, right? It's like when we ask for help and guidance, then we suddenly don't have to figure it all out on our own anymore, right? That actually is relieving. It brings guidance. It brings, you know, just this awareness we didn't have before. So this Queen of Wands of just, you know, getting to that place of just sitting there and being like, I mean, not just sitting there, but sitting there and being like, okay, this is taken care of. I don't need to worry about what's going to happen after I make the decision that works for me. I'm going to bring love into the situation and do my part based on the guidance I feel in here and what feels right to me. And then I will go from there with that. Okay, let's get some more for you. Okay, then we have Strength, Ace of Wands, and Temperance. So again, I feel like when you do that, Strength is the card we got, but I'm hearing like confidence. I'm hearing the word confidence. So when you have the strength to do that, when you have the strength to take action that is like resonates with you, or make a choice that feels right and good to you, so many times our confidence builds just from being brave enough to do that, right? So strength is like being like, okay, I made this choice. I'm happy with my choice. I'm proud of what I did. So that is going to keep showing up for me, and my confidence is going to keep building because I did that. And then Ace of Wands from that space is like this renewed ideas, renewed passion, renewed faith in things, renewed like, you know, it's kind of like this catch-22 of, you know, we feel scared to take action, but once we're brave enough to do a little bit, that then fuels us into taking more action. I don't know if it's a catch-22, but you get what I mean, right? Like it's this thing of we can't feel confident until we take the action, but we don't take the action until we feel confident. And so once we force ourselves to get out of our comfort zone a little bit, bring love into the situation, ask for help, try to do it a little bit differently, right? Then those things will change with all of this. And what happens from there is we find balance, right? We find this temperance energy of just like, this is what's working for me. This is what's not working for me. This is where I kind of, gave a little too much, but love in the situation is guiding me to go back this way a little bit, right? We get more clear about our boundaries, what works for us, what doesn't work for us, with all of that in there. So just kind of holding space for that and trusting, again, sometimes we're scared to follow our guidance because we're like, I don't do that. I don't do things like that. That's not who I am. That doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel, whatever. But it's just important to be open to, what could possibly work for us in any situation, even if it doesn't make, quote unquote sense. Damn, group 3, you have the Emperor, the High Priestess, and Justice. Look at these 3 major arcanas. Look at this, 3 people who are sitting there who know what the F to do, okay? Know what their guidance is, right? So I think this is just look at this. This is amazing, okay? So this is just really clear to me. 3 people who have self-mastery, 3 people who, the posture is the same, but it's 3 very different energies. And so I think what's being communicated with that is like, you can still be you and you can choose to do 3 different things of bringing love into the situation, right? You can still choose how you show up to each situation that feels resonant and feels clear to you to be able to do that. So this is not about saying like, okay, well, I have to act in like the High Priestess way every time, or I have to act in the Emperor way every time, or I have to act in Justice every time, right? It's saying like, I give myself permission to be this multifaceted, nuanced person. And in different situations, that's going to require me to be and show up as different things. And so when I do that, that's how all of that can be different for myself. You don't have to lock yourself into, I always respond in this way, or I always do this one specific thing, or I always, whatever. But just again, using a healthy place to be is having a framework for boundaries, but then using your own discernment in each situation to decide what you're actually going to do, instead of just having this one rigid rule of, I always do this exact thing in this exact way, right? Having that healthy communication and reflection within yourself to be guided what to do. And I'm getting some oracle cards for you. So we have the Observer. So you see there's these 2 hands with the threads of fate and the wings and all that. So again, I feel like this is just what I'm talking about. You have the choice to observe and choose what you do in each situation. You can like see what's going on and then decide, this is how I'm going to show up. This is what I'm going to do. This is what works for me in this particular situation. And again, like the hands, this idea of like, you're creating it, you're contributing to it, instead of just being like, oh no, this is the one thing I have to do because that's what I've always done. When that's not necessarily what you have to do anymore. The Angel of Faith, beautiful. I have faith that goodness and joy are mine now and forever. So again, sometimes we think we can't act in a different way or be different or whatever, because that won't bring me, what does this say? That won't bring me goodness. That won't bring me joy. That won't bring me on my path, right? But actually the truth is, when we're willing to be different, to do something different, to show up in a different way, that's when things that are for us are actually brought to us, because we exist in that. And so faith is, trusting in the ways we want to grow and change, trusting in how we want to do a situation, even if it doesn't make sense to us, right? Even if it is like, seems like, well, that seems like it could never work out, right? Whatever. But how many times have we stayed true to ourselves and brought love to the situation, or, showed up in a different way than what we originally had planned on doing, and it just worked out because we listened to our gut and our intuition with those things, instead of just, I need to be right because this is what I decided it's going to be, and that's how it's going to be the end. Okay, I'll close with one affirmation card for you. Can't make it up. I listen to the wisdom of my heart. So again, there's all the logic in the world, especially when we're trying to build boundaries and we're trying to be like, okay, this is what I'm doing now. This is who I am. This is whatever, right? But at the end of the day, nothing can trump, or I personally believe, what feels right and resonant for you should be the guiding force at the end of the day. So listening to the wisdom of your heart. So just tuning inward, see what your heart has to say. Let yourself be surprised by it. But yeah, I listen to the wisdom of my heart. Okay, that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you ever want any more information about me, all that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Hi, everyone. Welcome. This is for you guys who picked group 4. So you all picked balance, spirituality, and practicality, full moon in Pisces. So this is a reminder that we need balance in life in all things, okay? But especially with spirituality and practicality, there is praying and asking for help and asking for guidance and all of that, right? But we can't unlock some of those levels of knowing and awareness if we're not taking any action at all, if we're not pushing ourselves to do something, to be different, to change something, right? If we don't do any of those things, we're not going to figure something out or figure out our path or anything like that. So, for all the ways that you are asking for help spiritually, it's important to be doing things in physical reality. And then the opposite is also true of just, am I, okay, this is my plan. This is what I'm doing. This is how it's going to exactly unfold. It's going to be like this, and this, right? Sometimes we can get so focused on that we don't leave any space for a miracle to happen or something to unfold in a way that is surprising or kind of comes together in like a really nuanced, magical way for us, or, anything like that. So balance spirituality and practicality is just a reminder that we need both. And sometimes when we feel exhausted or things aren't working or we don't know what's going on, we might be leaning a little too heavy into one or the other. So especially with the solstice today, thinking about where can I find balance in these things, where can maybe, this is a time of my life where I need to be a little more spiritual, or this is a time of my life I need to be a little more practical, or this situation I need to be more spiritual, but this other situation I need to be more practical, right? Only you know what works and what doesn't work, what is working, what is not working, right? But using all that together to balance the spirituality and practicality together in order to be able to just find what feels right to you. It's like sometimes we think something is totally not working for us, but if we just put a little more balance or a little more clarity around, yes, this, not this, all that, then things can they can change for us, even if the actual situation doesn't change. Just how much we give our energy to each thing can determine some of that. Okay, I'm going to pull some, what am I doing? Some tarot cards for you guys, group 4. Okay. Okay, so we have the Tower, Page of Swords, and the Three of Wands. So yeah, so I feel like especially around a situation that you can't control, which is a lot of things, right? The only things we can control is ourselves, but we think this thing is under our control or this situation is or whatever because it might have appeared a certain way before. But especially around things we can't control, that's where we have to balance our reaction to it. And sometimes we do need a more spiritual response to it, and sometimes we do need a more practical one. Maybe you're in a new situation where you've never done this before, so you feel like you have like baby boundaries or baby awareness around, okay, I definitely need to be doing this, or I should be doing that, or, whatever. And just having faith that you have a choice here and knowing you have a choice, right? So this Three of Wands is taking a moment to turn inward, to contemplate, to just saying, okay, in this situation, I can control myself. So I'm not really sure what that means because I'm new to this, but I do have a choice of what that looks like. What do I want my choice to be? What could it be? How do I show up in those ways, right? So all of this is energy around finding that balance and knowing that, a lot of that does come from trial and error and does come from, just being willing to see this is working, this is not working. I tried this, it didn't work. Let me try something else, right? You don't have to get it right and perfect on the first try, especially if you're trying to find the right balance, right? Usually it's that fine tuning and that more nuance around it versus, this is the thing I have to be doing no matter what. So just again, having some faith that you can figure it out as you go along, even if you feel like, oh, I'm brand new, I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to whatever, right? There's so many things that we figure out by just doing them. We wouldn't be able to figure them out unless we were doing them. Okay, so we have Knight of Cups, Nine of Pentacles, and Ace of Pentacles. All right, you got to honor the process, group 4. That's what I'm hearing. You cannot cut corners. You cannot become a master of something without being a beginner at it, right? So this could be, okay, I'm starting, this is where you actually are. Okay, I'm figuring it out. I'm going here, I'm doing all this. This is who I want to be. I want to be the mastered person. I want to be the Nine of Pentacles, person in my backyard with my bird strolling around, loving life, right? That's who I want to be. But to get there, you have to go slow and steady. You have to do the things. You have to take it one pentacle at a time, right? To get to all nine, you have to do it one at a time. You have to do things slowly but surely. You have to be able to move forward in this way that is has faith in the process. You do one thing at a time, you do all of that. So if you are hyper focused on, okay, it has to be this exact way, or I don't want to put in the work to grow and change to figure things out, right? Like, you have to do your part in it as well. You don't have to do it by yourself, and you don't have to beat yourself up if you're not perfect, but you are responsible for yourself and how you're showing up and doing that. So just knowing that you can't skip steps. I mean, you could try, but you're going to have to go through and fix it eventually at some point, right? So just having faith in what that looks like, and taking it one pentacle at a time, and just really having faith that you figure it out by figuring it out. You get it done by getting it done, right? There's no magical answer here. You just have to get going, and then that's when things come to be and come to get sorted with that for you there. Okay, let's look at a few more tarot cards. All right, patience, everyone's favorite word, patience, right? I want it now. Okay, that's not how it works. So I think, turning inward. Oh, let me show you the cards. So you have the Four of Swords, Ace of Cups, and Page of Wands. Okay, so turning inward and saying, what is my next step? What do I want? Sometimes we can get really focused on, okay, I'm going to take this action, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to whatever. But it's like, did I turn inward and even check in? What feels right to me? What feels good to me? What is the best thing to do here, right? And then once you do that, that's when we can be overflowing with guidance, with awareness, with what to do and how to do it. And from all of those things comes, like, again, this new energy, this new ideas, this, oh, I just suddenly thought of this, or wow, I didn't realize it could be this specific way, or I didn't think about this, and this, right? So this Page of Wands is a reminder that when you turn inward and fill yourself up with that energy and of things that resonate for you, that feel good to you, of affirming yourself, exploring yourself, like turning inward with that, that's going to eventually overflow and guide you to, okay, what choice do I want to make? What decision do I want to make? What works for me? What doesn't work for me? And so again, finding more of that spirituality and practicality balance does require that you do some spiritual things and do some practical things, and kind of see how that unfolds for you with these choices of things. Okay, I'm going to pull some oracle cards for you, group 4, to close your reading. Higher perspective. Okay, so again, I think, a lot of what I'm getting here, if you need to be more practical, go with it. But this is just for a message for a few of you, maybe not for all of you who picked this group, but definitely spirituality is kind of where you need to look. Sometimes we can really look of like what's happening right now in this moment in this thing, and we lose the higher perspective, right? We lose that, things, if we're motivated by material and physical means, explanations that come from spirituality, that come from the higher self, that come from expansion, those aren't going to resonate or feel good for us. But the truth is, if we can kind of peel back, and we can't see what God sees, so if we can peel back and get the higher perspective and remind ourselves there's something bigger going on here than just this little moment of my life, and think long term, that can kind of balance us out too. So maybe balancing this higher perspective of, okay, sometimes, things happen in a way that don't make sense to me because they make sense to God, right? Or things happen in a way that doesn't feel good to my ego or to my physical reality, but there's some deeper meaning beyond all of that that is for me. And again, that's not to like romanticize these things that happen, but that is part of life. And so learning to balance that higher perspective actually does bring us a lot of peace when we are able to make meaning in a way that makes sense and feels good to us based on these things that happen outside of us, that again, we wouldn't necessarily be like, wow, I love that, I'm so glad it happened, right? But your agency is in making meaning of these things that maybe you wouldn't have necessarily chosen. The Angel of Mercy. Wow. Divine mercy gives me the grace to be tender and accepting. So exactly what I was talking about, right? Mercy, sometimes we forget to give that to ourselves, right? Tender and accepting to myself. Can I accept that okay, maybe this situation played out and I'm not super happy with what happened, but can I give myself some mercy, some tenderness, some acceptance, right? Sometimes the meaning we make from something is like, I learned to be kinder to myself. I went through a really hard time and I learned how to be kinder to myself, right? That's not glorifying anything. That's just, what you could take from it. So just remember, like, showing yourself mercy, tenderness, acceptance. And if you need help, you can tap into what that feels like for your higher power to give that to you, and just hold that space, and then, try to offer that to yourself as well. Beautiful. It's a really beautiful card. The Angel of Mercy. Okay, we're going to close with one affirmation card for you. Group 4. Oh my gosh. We were just talking about this. Oh my God. I let grace lead the way. Okay, so this is again what I was just talking about with the staircase of, like, you take one step and the next step is revealed. You do one thing and the next thing is revealed. But this does come from turning inward and knowing that, the spiritual perspective is, if I do my part, my higher power, my angels, my whatever you believe in, is orchestrating things to unfold for me in a way that I could have never imagined for myself. So I let grace lead the way as a reminder that, when you are doing your part and you are doing these things, that miracles can happen and things can be arranged for you and things can come together as long as you're trying to do that. And just remember, letting grace lead the way is a way to lean into some spirituality with that, like, practical perspective, right? You're doing your side of the street, and then God, the universe, whatever you believe in, is doing their side of the street. So I let grace lead the way. That's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you want any more information about me, all that's linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.